This interview is part of the History Heard project. The content of this interview may be used for historical research. However, no part of this video itself may be reproduced without the express written permission of an authorized representative of History Heard. Today is February 16th at 8 o'clock. This is an interview with Cynthia Addison in Bradenton, Florida. She was born on July 1st, 1959 in Tampa, Florida. You were in New York City on August 14th during the 2003 Northeast Blackout. Can you describe your experience?
Yes. I was visiting New York City from Florida and had arrived on August 14th. Early in the morning. We had lunch and walked around the neighborhood and then went out to Roosevelt Island by way of the cable cars. And walked around Roosevelt Island, visited, and we were just getting ready to go back across the river by cable car, and in fact had not put our little token into the turnstile yet, but we're just about getting ready to when everything stopped. At that point, the people who run the cable cars were confused. Somebody ran up from downstairs. Nobody really knew what was happening. Thought something might be wrong with the cable car. And we went down around, we said, well, we'll just use the subway. We went down around to the subway stop, and the people were coming up out of the subway, and the police were there. Nobody could get a cell phone signal. And then it became apparent that the electricity was off everywhere. At that point, no one really knew what was going on. There was some thought that there might be some terrorism involved, this being 2003 and 9/11 being fairly recent and vivid in people's minds. But there was no way to know. And information was hard to come by, especially on Roosevelt Island, which, as you know, is the middle of the East River. Luckily, I was with someone who happened to have lived on Roosevelt Island and knew how to get off of Roosevelt Island by the back way, the bridge into Queens. The buses were still running, but we missed the bus. So we had to walk over to where the bridge was, and actually a Good Samaritan picked us up. We flagged down a car, and a Good Samaritan picked us up and took us across the river. At that point, our plan was to go to LaGuardia Airport and try to get out of New York City. Again, not knowing really what was going on, and trying to plan for a worst case scenario. The idea was just to get away from New York City. But in the car, the woman had the radio on, and it was interesting because the radio stations were not getting information either. Obviously, they didn't have power either. So they had guys on bicycles with walkie-talkies or cell phones that were like calling them, getting to tell them what was going on in the city by cell phone, and that was really the only information that the radio stations had. Until finally, I suppose emergency broadcast system or some kind of other kind of emergency system kicked in, and they were able to get some outside information, and it was reported that it was not terrorism, that it was just a blackout, a New York City blackout. At that point, the woman let us off on a corner in Queens, and we flagged down a cab, and our next thought was then to get back across the river to our hotel in Manhattan, on the Upper East Side. So the cab took us over toward the 59th Street Bridge, but the traffic was horrendous. There's huge traffic snarls, and the cab driver did not want to sit in the stalled traffic because, as he told us, the pumps would not pump gas without electricity. So he would just use up all his gas, would not be able to get any more gas. And he was quite concerned about that. So he let us off at the bridge, and we stared at the people flowing back over the bridge, most of them coming into Queens. We were on the wrong end of that traffic. There was a huge number of people by this point, coming across the bridge. And it was kind of scary to think that you would join in that. Scary for us, not being New Yorkers, to try to figure out what we were going to do. Eventually, though, it became clear that the longer we sat there, the only thing that we were using up was time, and the only eventuality was that it would eventually get dark. And so our choices at that point were, we could either walk across the bridge in the daylight or walk across the bridge in the dark. At which point we decided that we would rather walk across the bridge in the daylight. So we did join with the people that were walking across. It was interesting. We saw empty shoe boxes on the side and old shoes. People who had abandoned their shoes along the bridge. The one thing that really did kind of turn the tide, the last deciding straw for us to join the throng crossing the bridge, was an elderly woman who seemed to be used to this sort of thing, just making her way determinedly across the bridge like nothing was going to stop her. We thought, well, heavens to Betsy, if she can do it, we certainly can. So we did. We walked across the 59th Street Bridge, and it was really interesting. People were just kind of making the best of it, and the stores and the people, not on the bridge obviously, but on either side of the bridge, they had taken everything that was going to spoil or that had been refrigerated, and they stuck them in coolers with whatever ice they had on hand, and they were selling things along the sidewalk. It was August 14th. It was really hot that day. And so they were selling. People are very enterprising, so they just started selling things along the side of the road. And everybody seemed to be kind of in good spirits and just doing what they had to do. Nobody seemed worried. It was more like, you know what, this is where I am, this is what I have to do, and so I'm walking. And when we got to the other side of the bridge, it was almost a party atmosphere. You know, people were, they were just making the best of it, and I think they were kind of celebrating their New Yorkness. We did get back to the hotel. The hotel used glow sticks for the patrons to get up to their rooms by way of stairs. Our hotel did. The hotel also gave away food and all sorts of drinks free to the people that were staying there in the hotel. They also took in people from the neighborhood who needed a safe haven that they knew were from the neighborhood. The interesting thing that we don't think about being from Florida is that in New York City, the water tanks are on the roofs of the buildings, where water is pumped up to the water tank, and then gravity pulls the water down into the buildings. So when the electricity was off, when the power was off, after the water tanks were emptied, there was no pump to pump the water back up into the water tanks, so then you were without water as well. And all of the problems that causes, being without water. And